In this episode, you'll hear some sensitive topics. So, with this trigger warning, if you have little ones around, please grab your headphones now.
And then as my own life experience evolved and I started seeing more and more people who had different experiences themselves, I really began to realize that we need to manage our time to manage our health. And I think that that was a huge aha moment for me, which is so much of this comes down to time management. If we're not resourced, the quality of every experience diminishes.
Hmm.
And space begets space. We have to create a little bit of spaciousness. That's why I say self-care is a discipline. It's like it is a discipline that we have to keep like a doctor's appointment. If I don't take my lunch, if I don't do my exercise in the morning, which is very brief, by the way, it's a quick thing, but those are my moments alone. I work, I have a client-based business and I have two young children and I have a marriage I'm trying to keep alive. And I also have treasured friendships and I have aging parents and I want to participate in my community and my school. I need that 20-minute lunch break. That is part of my personal resource, my energy resource. And so I think that that is really important for us to acknowledge.
Folks, this week's guest is my good friend, Daphne Javitch, nutritionist and founder of Doing Well. From experiencing an ovarian cyst rupture to severe endometriosis in her mid-30s, how did Daphne turn her health and life around, and now leading others to live a healthy lifestyle? You'll definitely want to tune in to hear Daphne's story. Let's cue the intro. Welcome to the Boom Vision Podcast, the show that empowers you to live an enriching life physically, mentally, and spiritually. I am your host, Benjamin Ye, and I created this podcast to give you perspectives on how to strengthen your mindset so that you can build optimal health, create aligned wealth, and connect with your higher self. It's all interconnected. Let's get to work. Welcome back to episode 79 of the Boom Vision Podcast. I am happy to share today's interview with my good friend, Daphne Javitch, nutritionist and founder of Doing Well. I've known Daphne for over a year now, and as I've gotten to know her and her way of being, when she shared that she was a nutritionist and coaches others in living a healthy lifestyle, my intuition was telling me to invite her on my show. As a brief background, Daphne Javitch is the founder of Doing Well, named one of New York's best nutritionists by New York Magazine. Daphne has amassed a loyal and engaged community through her online presence, the Doing Well membership, and her private and group coaching practice. Her inviting and shame-free approach to health focuses on lifestyle essentials for nutrition, sleep, stress management, exercise, purpose, and routine building. She frequently appears on panels and podcasts and has been featured in Vogue, the New York Times, The Cut, The Slowdown, among others. So without further ado, here's Daphne. Daphne Javitch, welcome to the Boom Vision Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ben. I'm most excited to be here with you.
Oh, me too. Me too, Daphne. I know this has been several months in the making, and I'm glad we are doing it today. And I'd love to just dive right in. Daphne, please share your origin story of where did it all begin and what has happened in your life that has led to the path that you're currently taking right now.
Okay, where did it all begin? It began on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. That's where I'm from. And I'm going to skip to when I was in my 20s and early 30s. I had a 10-year career as a costume designer, and then I shifted into working more directly in fashion. I had an underwear line that was inspired by mostly kind of actresses from the 70s. But then I was a women's wear consultant in fashion. I consulted for Theory and for Uniqlo. And I was doing pretty well in my fashion career. And shortly after I got married, I married Pally when I was 34. I was hospitalized when an ovarian cyst ruptured. And I was diagnosed at 34 with pretty severe endometriosis. And I was told basically in the hospital to go on birth control and have immediate surgery. But at the time, I had just started working with a health coach. Her name is Mary Ruth Guillaume, and now she's the founder of Mary Ruth Organics. It's a supplements line. Anyway, I just started working with her, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to take a pause and I'm going to explore another approach to healing. And by the way, I should mention that I had had debilitating period pain my entire menstruating life, essentially, since I was 13. And I was taking like 12 Advil a day. I had digestive distress. I had mood, what I would consider in retrospect, kind of a mood disorder. And so I began working with Mary Ruth. And then I got even more curious and committed. And I started working with a more radical practitioner named Gil Jacobs in New York. He's a colon hydrotherapist. And within 6 months of practicing the principles that they taught me, all of my symptoms went into remission. And for anyone who experiences period pain or any chronic pain, to go from having over a decade of discomfort to living symptom free is a pretty transformative experience. And so I became really curious and really passionate about health and healing. So much so that after about a year, I decided I want to be a health coach. I want to do what Mary Ruth does at the time. Now she does something else. And that is when I decided, after studying with Mary Ruth and Gil, to go to school and become certified. And I went to the Hippocrates Health Institute, and I was certified as a health educator. And then I started my private practice.
I see a lot of different branches of where we can go from there. But when you first got licensed, what year was that?
Gosh, I'm really bad at stuff like that, but I believe it was like 2015 or 16.
So this is one of the things I got from what you just shared. And something you mentioned also right before we started recording. I want to tie this together because your story, it felt in some sense and form, started with pain. And you've learned from the, call it act one of this journey with pain, led to you having, it's almost like you took the steering wheel and saying, no, I don't like the direction this is currently going. I want to go a different direction. And you want to go from more of a holistic sense because yes, I mean, I think modern medicine does have its place in helping you, but at the same time, is it healing you at its root cause? I don't know. It depends on the situation, but you proactively taking the reins and taking a different direction, that's another way of my question for you is basically, what did you learn most from the pain you went through that in hindsight turned out to be the biggest gain in your life?
Well, the thing about chronic pain is that we're very adaptive. And so we adapt pretty quickly to pain, which is not a great quality actually, because we're experiencing a less vibrant life, right? When we're experiencing chronic pain. And in some ways I was really lucky because mine was very linked and associated with my period. So it was really only for 1 week a month. There are so many people I work with who are in pain every single day. And I think the pain was definitely a pathway, but I forgot to mention, and I think it's so important, that also as a woman in the Western world working in fashion, I think the thing that really shifted was I had until then really considered health only in relationship to how I looked.
Mm.
And even though I didn't feel well, I still thought of health as, how I looked. And I was more concerned with, let's say, my cellulite than my colon. And when I was given this opportunity to have more insight into my body's desire to heal, which is all of our body's desire, we are all designed to express health. We are naturally designed to express health. We don't live in a natural world, though, so don't be hard on yourself if you're not expressing perfect health. That's not necessarily so much to do with us as we believe. But when I got to experience that, which was not so much a choice, to be honest, it's not like I made some kind of noble choice. My back was up against the wall. An ovarian cyst rupture is very painful. And I've had a home birth, and I'm going to tell you, an ovarian cyst rupture is very painful. Even when a cyst goes into torsion, it's very painful. So I was kind of for the first time like, oh my gosh, it was really eye-opening to realize my body is assisting me and wants to heal and wants to be well. And I can assist my body in that direction as well. So even though, yes, the pain went away and that was a big deal, a very big deal in terms of daily function, over the course of 10 years, quieting what I call my inner gremlins, kind of my obsessive, circular, critical, negative thinking, first kind of quieting that as it related to how I spoke and thought about myself. And now, way further on in my journey, now I've had children, now I've worked in this line of work for a decade with so many people. Now, a lot of that quieting of my gremlins is not even about how I talk to myself anymore. It's about how I think about other people, how I move through my relationships, how I parent, how I meet my resistance. So I just gave you a kind of very wide lens answer to a specific question that I sort of forgot. But I think that what has been life changing is cultivating a friendliness towards myself and a kind of reverence for my body and what my body naturally is inclined to do and supporting it.
Yeah. Okay, so I definitely felt that because what came to me as I'm listening to you talk is that when you're on this journey that you didn't necessarily, at least consciously sign up for this pain journey, when you're on this trail and you're doing what you can to get off of it because it's not comfortable, it's not positive. What I see is at some point you're going to reach this certain crossroad. And either you go down this path of anger or why me or just feelings that are less than neutral, or you approach it on a different path, the other side of it, which is, you use the word friendliness, you use, coming from a place of love. Oh, I can heal myself. I can work with my body. I can work with, my own healing journey from within. And the mental picture that came to me, it's like there's this huge force of light, and it might feel very powerful, but it's shooting through this prism. And the light that refracts from it is one of two paths. Either it's really dark or it's very bright and colorful. And it feels like because of your conscious decision to say, you know what, rather than casting away my pain and saying like you're such a villain, it's like, what's the lesson here? How do we work on this together? The decision to approach it from a friendly energy and from a place of, it feels like from love, you were allowed yourself to see the bright and colors and love rather than dark. Does that image resonate with you? And I'm wondering what allowed you to pick one side versus the other. What was it that helped you in that journey?
So I don't think either path is bright and colorful or completely dark.
Mm,
I think that a healing journey, first of all, what enabled me to do so, I have to say, is one, it's like divine intervention because I honestly don't know what in the moment of getting that diagnosis and getting those instructions, it takes so much courage, anyone, to say, oh, wait a second, I'm just going to take a breath on this. I'm just going to pause. When you hear something scary from a medical professional and they tell you what to do, it's completely natural in our culture to follow those instructions. So I'm not, braver or more into holistic healing than anyone else at that point. So I really say like almost divine intervention to take that breath, right? And then I had incredible, incredible teachers, incredible teachers. And my teachers did for me what I hope I do for my clients, which is they made me capable. They made me capable of just taking the next step and then the next step and the next step. And they demystified a lot of it and they made it less scary and they helped me see the light and the humor in it. But healing is arduous. It is not, I would not come here and say it is brighter and happier than taking a pill,
Hmm.
but it is more rewarding because of the relationship that we build with ourselves when we do take that breath, when we do take a look, when we do begin to notice, wait, what is happening inside me? When we go in, there's a meaning and a reward that comes with that relationship, like any relationship. So, to answer the question, I can't take credit. There's nothing about me. I don't think that I don't know. I would say divine intervention allowed me to take that breath. And then I was so lucky to have such incredible teachers. And I emphasize that because one of the reasons I became a coach was I was like, when I looked around at that time, you have to remember this was 10 years ago. Coaching was not cool 10 years ago. I did not see people who I could relate to in the health space. I was a girl working in fashion. I smoked 15 cigarettes a day. I hung out, all my crowd were non-American, like, quote, chic people. Like they did not care about smoothies and salads and, things that we associate with the quote wellness world. So I did not see people I could relate to, which is, I think that is very me. I see something, I want something, I don't see it, and I start to generate and make it. That I can kind of credit myself with. But my teachers were such an inspiration and had such an impact on me that I was like, I want to do what these people are doing. And I got to tell you, no one was like, that's a great idea. No one was like, leave your well-paid, optically successful job in a cool field to become a health coach.
Yeah.
So
Well, so the two takeaways I got from that, Daphne, is that one, because it was divine intervention, it allowed you to see a different path that is possible. And the second is the fact that you were blessed to encounter impactful teachers that gave you the sense of feeling that you are capable and it's within you. That feeling of capability is powerful. And you probably have heard that saying before, where when the students are ready, the teacher will show up, right? And it feels like because you have to be ready for that kind of space and that energy to come into your life, to come into your field. I'm curious, when you say divine intervention, would you consider yourself as a spiritual person, or did that come into your life as you're going through this journey of pain?
I would not consider myself a spiritual person, especially then, but I do believe that recognizing and kind of becoming aware and familiar with our innate desire to heal is a gateway to spirituality. I
Hmm.
understand why so many people in health get really into spirituality because there is a divine nature to healing and not just physical healing, like relational healing, all healing. And I will say that the principles that I guide people through and my approach to health shares a lot with a mindfulness practice.
Hmm.
Whether it wasn't on purpose, but it just kind of organically happened. So things like I work a lot with people on pausing, gathering information, noticing, adopting a neutral or a friendly attitude towards the information that we're gathering, not being so all or nothing. So not worrying so much whether we're doing it perfectly, but when things kind of go astray, gently returning to the practice. All of that, if you sit, if you meditate, sounds familiar, right? So
Right.
it was kind of intuitive that that happened. And as I started to realize, oh, that the more I learned about Buddhism, the more I was like, oh, well, that's really resonates with how I feel about health. And as you mentioned earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Then I started working with my therapist, who is a Buddhist psychiatrist. His name is
Wow.
Epstein. Yeah. And he also then became a mentor for me. So, and he has been so important in what I would call my current spiritual practice, which is he has really brought to my attention all the moments in daily life that are a meditation versus just sitting and meditating,
Yeah.
having a daily practice, which is great. But he has also said, the meditation is in the game that you play over and over and over with your child. Can you find the meditation there? Can that be the practice? Can you return to the present moment? He doesn't talk like this. He's way less like jargony than this, but and that has been so eye-opening and really supportive of how I work with clients as well, in terms of this idea of becoming curious about ourselves versus critical, which is a natural reflex, right? And focusing on that return. So I would not call myself a spiritual person. I don't have a daily sitting practice, but I think that I look at health and healing and my approach to health through what could be considered a spiritual lens. And I'm influenced by a lot of spiritual principles.
Hmm. Got it. No, and I feel that, and also just knowing you too, it's that having a mindset and attitude of curiosity, this openness to just hearing what can be, what is possible, allows for new information to come into your life rather than being saying no. And for me, I think when I reflect on myself, my own spiritual journey, when I'm able to sense and feel things that I can't see, oh wow, there's a lot of the world I don't know. But if I approach it with just a curious mind and this could be a fun journey to learn, then I recognize that, oh, then more information is I'm allowing that to come into my space. So, yeah.
I find that, especially now, because we live in a culture when it comes to health or spirituality or parenting, it's very instructional. It's very prescriptive. And I honestly can say that as I've continued this journey, personal and professional, the more I know, the less I know.
Hmm. Totally, totally get what you're saying with that. Yeah.
And I do want to say one more thing about spirituality, because I can imagine some people are like, she's not a spiritual person. Like, you know, my version of spirituality as well is I used to be a person that if we were having dinner, I would talk about people, not necessarily in a hostile or a negative way, but I spent a lot of time talking about people. I feel that as I've become that I've gone deeper into my own practice and addressing and facing my next levels, something that I consider a spiritual practice is really considering, is what I'm saying necessary? Is it
Hmm.
adding to the experience? Is it adding to the conversation? And typically chitter chatter about people is not, so
Hmm.
there are acts of spirituality I think that we all can practice or consider beyond sitting. I know I'm keep referencing like more of a Buddhist practice, but and Mark really helped me with that, because he helped me realize that there are all these moments. And I feel very similarly about health, which is it's really difficult to be from wake time till bedtime a very perfect, good health person. But there are these opportunities throughout the day to return to the practice. And
Yeah.
once you get into the habit of recognizing the opportunity and taking it, wow, then the healing it has a momentum and it has a direction. And the direction is so important when it comes to health.
Yeah. So, Daphne, when you had to essentially be strapped into this health roller coaster that you had to go through, was there a early belief that previously before you felt was true, but because you had the experience of amazing mentors in your life on this journey, you later found out it is completely not true. It was a misconception. What would
Yes.
what would that be for you?
I think that there were many, and there continue to be things that I learn and unlearn. And I really hope that I'm able to unlearn and relearn for years and years to come. But one of the big ones is that we put a huge emphasis on inputs, what we eat, supplements we take, which obviously what we eat is very important, and we can talk about the basics of that or whatever, but there's very little emphasis on the outputs. And actually, so much of being healthy in modern life is really about what comes out of the body. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and this was a huge revelation for me in my own healing journey, which is we're so focused on what goes in that we forget, whoa, we have all these detox pathways, these channels in our body that we need to assist because it's very important to remember we're naturally designed to express health. We're perfectly designed, but we haven't, updated the human system, and now we're living in a modern world that is relatively toxic in terms of the burden that we carry on a daily basis, right? So, part of being well and expressing health in a modern world is unburdening our detox pathways. So, when I just want to be more specific, which is our colon, our kidneys, our skin, our lungs. So, we really need to be prepare yourselves, everyone. I'm going to say some triggering words maybe. We have to be pooping, we have to be peeing, we have to be sweating, and we have to be breathing. And I would even add crying because I feel like crying is a form of elimination, like
Mm.
bringing out the internal sponge. But so I think that was a big misconception. We're thinking about all the things I can take and all the things I can eat, and really we must always consider what's coming out of the body. Where am I letting go, releasing, relieving, unburdening, laying down some of the toxic burden, right? And that
Yeah.
includes energetic and emotional burden.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that fact that you just said that because the one thing I was going to add to what you shared is the mental baggages that you keep in the back trunk of your mind. Like there's some times where you gotta just gotta let that stuff go as well. Otherwise, if you keep running this cycle of like, sure, I'm purging two things, but I keep adding three more of this energetic weight, like that's not sustainable in the long run either.
Absolutely.
So, as a holistic health coach, Daphne, sometimes we learn things from the academics or through training, but I feel like we learn so much more when you're in the field in working with the clients and realizing, oh, wow, no, this is really what's happening, or there might be a simpler solution for what it is. Were there any aha moments or revelations? You mentioned the revelation you just had, which is what goes out also needs to be focused as much as what goes in. Is there something in the last decade or so that you found, oh, wow, no, this is also a revelation from working with clients day in, day out that made me realize, oh, this is something different than potentially what you learned in training to
Mhm.
become a coach?
Well, yes, I'm going to answer that, but I want to add that, and I also do some career coaching, and so I always tell people this, that people are very concerned with their credentials when they start coaching, and I always try to let people know that the greatest teachers and the biggest education comes from working with people because yeah, it's just such a blessing to work with people on such a personal and profound thing as their health. And it's such a privilege for me because it really keeps me accountable to my own health practice. So I feel like it's a benefit to work with so many incredible, open, and willing people. And I think that in the beginning, like I said, when I started, first of all, when I started, I was, I didn't have children. I did not have a robust practice when I started. That took years to develop. And so I had a lot of time and it was easy to focus on my health, right? So everything was more dogmatic, more instructional, more prescriptive. And then as my own life experience evolved and I started seeing more and more people who had different experiences themselves, I really began to realize that we need to manage our time to manage our health. And I think that that was a huge aha moment for me, which is so much of this comes down to time management.
Mm.
Um, and I think that I think it's such a relief because I feel like any place you can take sort of the judgment out of health and put in a system instead. That's why I'm very routine oriented, rhythm oriented in my practice and my approach because we cannot rely on being in the mood to make these choices on a daily basis. But if we have a really strong foundational routine and rhythm in place, we're more likely to just lean on that scaffold of routine, right? And so
Yeah.
I think a huge aha moment was how much so much of this has to do with time management. Because as we know, and as so many people know, when you become a parent, when your career takes off, when you have aging parents, when you're more in demand in daily life, when you have a mobile device, it's very challenging to create the spaciousness and the calm that's necessary to tend to our health.
I love to go deeper in that time management because I wholeheartedly agree with you on this topic. And the question I have for you, Daphne, is when it comes to time management for you, when you had that revelation, did you realize in becoming a better manager of your time that you found yourself where there are certain things where were non-negotiables? It's a must-have in either your daily or weekly routine versus
Mhm.
not. What is some of the things, call it life hacks that you started implementing that helped you become a better manager of your time?
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, at this point, I want to say I'm an anxious person. And I have gotten feedback from my husband that I'm controlling. And then Mark, my therapist, helped me realize that I use control to manage my anxiety. So, something I just want to bring up at this point is that typically what I do when I'm encountering a health challenge, which to this day I still face them. It's not like endometriosis was it. I like to take the issue and turn it into a kind of learning experience or an opportunity to make something teachable or workable. So I already knew that I like the feeling of control. And so I was able to use control as part of my routine building and take it less from trying to manage other people and make it more about managing my time, which gave me a sense of peace and ease, right? As someone who leans anxious. And so I think I've also done a better job becoming less of a controlling person on other people and more about applying that where it really matters, which is my time management. So I would like to give you a few simple examples.
Yeah.
Thing is drinking a liter of water before noon. If every listener could just do this one thing, I promise it is such a game changer. It is such a game changer. So it's a pretty simple task, but simple is not easy, especially it's way easier to do this if you sit at a desk. But if you're someone who's out and about all day, it's quite challenging. So I drink a liter of water before noon every single day. That's going to help with the peeing, the pooping, the sweating. It helps with cravings. It helps with healthy skin. It helps with all kinds of things. It's such a powerful tool. So doing something so simple, but having a time frame in mind helps. I also really try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every single day. And that's much easier if you have children because you have human alarm clocks who live with you. So that has a huge impact on our health, going to bed and waking up around the same time every day, because what happens when we're sleeping is a profound cleansing and healing experience. So that is something I try to be consistent. And it's not to the minute, but that sleep routine and that sleep hygiene, because of the powerful impact of what happens while we're sleeping, hormone regulation, gut cleansing. Our neurons are replaced. Our brain basically takes out the trash. All of this really very important, powerful stuff happens. So, those are two examples. Those I would say are kind of universal that we can all practice. Other things, I really do try to take lunch. I try to take a lunch break. I find that a lot of busy people push through lunch, which leads to grabby, reactive, kind of reflexive eating later in the day, overeating towards the end of the day, snacking, eating convenient foods, which typically come out of a package, which are not my favorite foods. So, really creating that spaciousness midday where I get to sit and reflect and be by myself. And ideally it's a salad with something, pair your meal with a salad if you want to take it to the next level. So, those are three examples of consistent practices, and deceptively simple. It's actually something I need to say right away that I forgot to say that's so important, which is it is the repetition of these practices that has impact. So drinking 1 liter of water before noon for, let's say, 100 days this year will have a greater impact than any supplement, than any juice cleanse, than anything. There's so much to gather from every healing modality, and I'm not poo-pooing any modality, but it is the repetition, it is the consistency that heals. So when I introduce a practice into my routine, I am like, will I be able to do this for 10 days, 20 days, 40 days, 3 months, a year? And if it's a yes, then I feel pretty confident and strong that it's going to have a positive impact on my health.
Hmm. Yeah, so simple, yet how do we just be able to start doing and incorporating, right? Sometimes the simple things doesn't mean it's an easy thing,
Oh, no.
but there is beauty in simplicity. And if you can recognize that and you want that, desire that, and act on that, oh man, like that could be a game changer, right? It is a game changer.
And I will just add the spirituality element. The spiritual element is, okay, I'm excited to drink my water. And we're excited to drink our water for the first 3 days. And then on day 5 or day 7, or God forbid, the weekend comes and you forget your water bottle at home and you're on the go and your kids are, asking things of you, then we're designed to, we crave novelty. And then that's when we want to throw away the water and ask, what supplement can I take? And what, new approach to eating can I do? And the repetition and really staying in the repetition and meeting the resistance, the chatter that comes up, the desire to seek novelty, that, in my opinion, is a spiritual practice.
Yeah,
Just meeting those feelings and those responses and just meeting them with a neutral and, God willing, friendly attitude, and then repeat, 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 healing
yeah.
through repetition. And
Mm,
that is where the challenge comes in. And that's where it's so powerful to have a friend, a buddy, a partner, a coach, join the membership, one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm in this practice with someone, there's a witness, there's a team, that helps so, so much.
yeah. It's funny. I really appreciate you sharing these simple tips because if I reflect back on my younger self, one of the things that in my mind, why I did not drink as much water was I noticed that when I do drink a lot of water, I tend to go to the bathroom a lot. And so I wasn't thinking of health as the output as much as it is more emphasis on the input, right? The whole 80/20 rule, I felt like, oh, we should focus 80% on the input and just 20% on the output. But no, there needs to be a little bit more balance to that. And so before, my mind and my belief was like, well, imagine like you're taking a road trip, right, from call it LA to New York City. It's a long road trip, right? Do I want to go to a restroom break every 2 hours? Like, I feel like that's just going to slow me down. But wait a minute. If you just pause and just zoom out, it's like it's better to have a steady energy through this journey than this roller coaster. So, yeah, I need to rewire my association of, well, okay, having all these restroom breaks may be a nuisance, but no, it's not because it's really giving a healthy flow of things. That's what comes to me when I'm listening to you. It's like,
Oh,
you know,
I have to tell you, you are not alone. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, then I'm going to have to pee all day. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's a free cleanse, It's supporting your body's natural detox pathway. And I love that you said that kind of reframe, because I get this with taking a lunch break also. I mean, we don't need to move to Spain and take 3 hours in the afternoon for lunch. I'm talking about a 20-minute, 30-minute lunch break. People get very defended when they hear that, because the idea of giving ourselves that time when we have so many emails in the inbox and we have to, we have errands to run and a job to do and a house to keep and a million other, modern day demands. But really truly understanding that if we're not resourced, the quality of every experience diminishes.
Hmm.
And space begets space. We have to create a little bit of spaciousness. That's why I say self-care is a discipline. It's like it is a discipline that we have to keep like a doctor's appointment. If I don't take my lunch, if I don't do my exercise in the morning, which is very brief, by the way, it's a quick thing, but those are my moments alone. I work, I have a client-based business and I have two young children and I have a marriage I'm trying to keep alive. And I also have treasured friendships and I have aging parents and I want to participate in my community and my school. I need that 20-minute lunch break. That is part of my personal resource, my energy resource. And so I think that is really important for us to acknowledge. And so, like you said, on the road trip, better to have sustained energy. In the end, it's going to pay off, unburdening, letting go, releasing. It's all about what comes out. And also, we always have to remember that removing matter from the body raises our vibration.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So to bridge that to the next question, because I do agree and recognize when I say often on my show, when you're in the right environment, when you're in the right soil, that really impacts, are you surrounding yourself with weeds or seeds, right? Are they nourishing your energy or are they depleting your energy? And so I love to hear more about how it is you serve your clients, Daphne, because other than the one-on-one, I know you mentioned about membership, tell me a little bit more of what it is and how it is that you serve your clients.
Okay, so the basis of my practice is a private practice. I see clients one-on-one for health coaching. And then I think it was 2019, I started group offerings. So typically twice a year, I lead a group that's similar to my private coaching, but it's at a more accessible price point. And there are the benefits of working in a group, which the benefits are so many and it's so fun. I love working in groups. And then about 2.5 years ago, I launched the Doing Well membership. And that is the most accessible way to work with me. And that is a monthly membership. And I share content on that platform weekly. So the content includes really kind of bite-size, topic-oriented talks about health, guidance videos. Polly and I have a segment on there where we basically demystify the healthy kitchen and we cook all these really easy, healthy meals together. And I'm talking easy. Like this is for people who think that they can't cook. And then there's In Depth, which is a live session with me every month on a prominent health topic where everyone's questions are answered. And there's a guests category. And there's also a community category where we do these monthly challenges together and we share amongst the community our what we're loving, resources, questions, and so on.
Wow. And in the years of how your coaching has evolved in these different offerings, Daphne, are you able to share one or two transformational stories of how much impact it's had for some of your clients?
Yes. Well, I have a client who I'm actually, and I want to just add one thing, which is I also share a lot of content for free on Instagram. So I do want to
Hmm.
let everyone know that there's a free element. And I had a client several years ago, but I still see her. So about a third of my practice is ongoing. So I continue to work with people. And when I met her, she had two young children. She still has two young children. She had just sold her business, and she was a mother of two young children, which is very demanding. And so she was eating Taco Bell, which I totally understand because it was convenient and fast, and basically cut to she began juicing because juicing is a big part of my personal practice, and many clients also benefit tremendously from juicing. She recovered from a lot of chronic pain issues that she was working through. Her energy levels changed. She lost weight and I think arrived at her more natural weight. She had some parenting breakthroughs. And more recently, she opened a juice company in Ojai, which is so amazing because the journey from Taco Bell to green juice and then launching your own juice company is so incredible. So she's someone who's had a tremendous evolution and transformation. And a lot of people, I think what I'm most proud of with the people I work with is a lot of people feel better, experience more ease in their everyday life, more ease in their body, more ease in their relationships, and still feel like they can travel, socialize, parent, work. They can do all of these things and that they're feeling better and doing better, but it's not like this crazy, strict, restrictive, what I call the wellness witness protection program where you have to leave your life behind to be well. So I think a lot of what I feel the most proud of is helping people experience that ease, experience that peace without feeling like it was a dramatic, crazy shift. But yeah, I mean, I've had clients go into remission. I've had people come off of medication. I've had people achieve pregnancy. I've had, like I said, people have parenting breakthroughs. People start businesses. People leave their jobs if they weren't the right jobs or their partners. People, find peace with food, move away from an all or nothing attitude. All of those things for me, go from pooping every 2 days to pooping every day. These are huge accomplishments for me, in my opinion. I mean, for
Yeah.
us, for the work.
Yeah. So, Daphne, something's compelling me to ask this question, which is that have you noticed in serving your clients, is there a major block that tends to come up for folks? And if it is, what is that?
I think a big block is that there's so much information and we're being bombarded with information and it's compelling. And I honestly think that so much of what I practice and what I guide people through is so simple and so basic that it's almost unbelievable compared to telling you to like eat the liver of like a young goat and then inject like, whatever into your face. Like those are almost more compelling than drink a liter of water before noon, work on the sleep hygiene. Let's look at where stress is really activated in our life and how can we begin to work through that. We eat more natural single ingredient foods and less packaged processed foods. This has less of a kind of, yeah, it's just less compelling to a lot of people. So I think that believing that such simple things repeated over time can heal us or help us to heal, it's practically unbelievable. I think that's really current day. That's the biggest block. And then the other one is toxic stress. We just all feel such a tremendous amount of toxic stress. And it's like on a level that we've adapted to. And so we don't realize how receiving text messages and having constant access to our inbox and everything, the demand and the engagement, we need time to process our stress. We need nothingness. We used to, wait for a friend to arrive at a restaurant and do nothing. We used to wait in line at a supermarket and do nothing. Now we're constantly engaged, and that is really wear and tear on us. And we have to remember that aging is accumulation in the body. Aging is
Yeah.
accumulation, and accumulation includes all of that stuff that we're absorbing on a daily basis. So I think those are two huge challenges right now.
I want to share a story because I feel it ties a lot of what you just shared. And this story for me was, my first job out of grad school was being a hospitality consultant. And one thing about being a consultant is that you practically live out of a suitcase because you're constantly traveling wherever the client work is. And I happened to work for a boss, bless her heart. I really enjoyed working with her, but she's also like a workaholic. And for her, it's classic. She always had this lunch, which was a bag of pretzels and a Diet 7 Up, and that's it. And knowing how much and how hard she works, her being my supervisor, it impacted me because I almost feel guilty taking a lunch break. So then what I tend to do is I'll just bring lunch and I'll just eat as I'm continue working as well because I'm modeling what I'm seeing my boss do. But it got to the point where my body was literally telling me, it's like, wait, if I don't allow myself to just eat without sitting in front of a laptop and carve out, like you said, 20 minutes, like it doesn't have to be a full hour, but just eating is eating, working is working. And rather than multitasking, but do that. Because what I found in reflection of that period of time was when I didn't allow myself to just eat for the sake of eating, but rather I'm compelled to multitask, I kind of subconsciously built this pattern of, well, I always got to be doing things for the sake of time.
Mhm.
And so I got to cram in as much as I need to do for the sake of time. But that relates to then, wait, do I allow myself to properly digest information, food, etc., all the elements? And then also, do I allow myself to then output? I'm not going to be if I'm constantly always juggling all these things rather than like, no, I'm gonna dedicate that. And when I did finally dedicate saying, wait, I really need that break, it does give me times if I do need to spend, longer hours, whatever it is, but it just feels like a more healthier balance for me than not.
Absolutely. And it's really, I love the story you told because this is such a common story. You could have a boss or be a boss. Let's say you are a boss, a leader, and we can tell our team or our children, oh, yeah, yeah, take your lunch. But if we're eating pretzels and a 7 Up, what we're actually communicating is no, but you, on some level, it's saying no, but I'm not taking a lunch and I'm the leader and I'm the boss. And so it's not modeling healthy behavior or healthy practice in the workplace. And what I found, and I have a client who's like a big creative director. And with her, one of the things we worked on was her, and this was like a huge deal. This practically caused panic attacks, was getting her to not respond to work related texts or emails after 8 p.m. This is where we started, 8 p.m. And then finally we moved it back to 6:30. And sometimes even saying things like, I'm not available. And it was wild what we noticed because she began to rise in her company, right? Because rather than be spazzed out, burnt out, stressed, on edge, she was really managing her time and modeling managing her time. And she was voted one of the top leaders in her company
Hmm.
after a couple of years. But it's this idea of we need to model this behavior, and we also need to see this behavior being modeled by our bosses and our leaders. And I just want to say one thing about time management and routine that's so important. And then I also have one other thing to say about multitasking. But when we talk about establishing a rhythm and a routine and managing our time, and I know I said I was a controlling person, but I really want to emphasize that structure creates freedom. Having what we can put into a system or a routine in place opens up all this space for more spontaneous, fluid, creative, emotional moments, right? But when we don't organize the things that can be put into a system or a routine or a rhythm, what happens is everything bleeds into each other. And then we're plagued with decision fatigue. And then we're trying to play a game or build with our child, and we're thinking about all the things that we still have to do. And that it starts to push us in so many directions. We're worn so thin. And then we're not having a present experience. And the purpose of being well is not to like check all the boxes. The purpose of being well is to be of service to each other, to connect, to engage, to connect, feel resourced enough to experience each other, right? And to
Hmm.
be there for each other. On the topic of multitasking, we're monotaskers. Okay. But culturally, we've basically been conditioned to multitask. And the confusion there, which you so beautifully illustrated, is that we think we're doing more, but we're actually doing things less efficiently. It's actually taking longer, and we're making more mistakes. So it is really wild what happens when we create that spaciousness, taking a lunch. Just really quickly, I have another client who works for a huge company, like a huge company, and the CEO of that company is a woman and insists that there be a very large pool in every hotel she stayed in. And my client was like, gosh, we always used to think she's such a diva because she's requesting this pool in every hotel she stays in. But actually, it's because this woman goes swimming every single morning before she starts work. And that makes total sense. That's her meditation. That's her spaciousness. That's probably the only time she has to be submerged in water to be alone, probably, or to be away from her devices. That is crucial to leadership, to meaningful productivity, right?
Yeah.
So it's really counterintuitive. It's super counterintuitive, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate you just sharing that story too, because sometimes without allowing people to understand why it is you're doing what you're doing, to help them connect the dots, like it doesn't feel like it's a complete conversation then, because if people understood the why and the intention of why you're asking this request, right? What it is that you're looking, or the standard that you're setting for your team, or whatever it may be, understanding the intention and the why, and seeing if that really aligns with the what. I mean, that's the work that I do. Is just that's what alignment means. It has to be in a similar vibration. And when it's not, things get out of whack. Universe will tell you. Your body will tell you,
That's
right?
right.
And I love that you share that, because it makes a lot of sense when once you realize that, it's beautiful that why they have that, and hopefully the team can enroll in the same way.
Absolutely. And also it's worth acknowledging how challenging it is. How
Yeah.
challenging it is in a culture that is projecting and asking so much of us. It is not easy. Like it is not easy to put my phone away at the end of the day and go be with my children.
Yeah.
And I feel shame almost saying that because in, Instagram life, everybody loves being with their children. Also, if it's on Instagram, you had your phone. But it is a practice of deliberateness, and that's why when we talked earlier about the two paths and one being colorful and beautiful, it is a more technicolor life. It
Mm.
is, but it is challenging in so many ways to learn and practice and have it not be easy and still try again, right? And food and still try again. And also sometimes end up at Taco Bell and not be so hard on ourselves for that, right? To just say, okay, Taco Bell tonight, green juice tomorrow morning, you know?
Yeah. I want to also elaborate what you just mentioned. So hopefully you understand my why I brought that image up. When I mentioned about the different colors and the Technicolor imagery, my intention of that isn't so much about, oh, life is just shiny and rainbows and unicorns and it's just fun. My intention of why I feel that image came through me is because you have to be consciously present to be able to see and feel the different gradations of color. Otherwise, it'll just flash before your eyes. And so it doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean it's sunshine and rainbows, but it's like it's there whether you see it or not. But if you just slow down to pause and see it, then you're allowing space to even appreciate life for what it is. You get the opportunity to when you're able to just be present.
Mhm. Yes. And we get to attach to the accomplishments, and that's so important because that's empowering. And that empowerment, that sense of being the authority on our bodies and on our well-being that is rainbows and unicorns, actually. Like, that is so, so transformative because looping it back to the beginning, then when you are given a prescription or you do encounter a new fad diet, we get to say, let me put that through my feelers and really determine whether that feels right for me. And we get to trust the answer. And that presence, meaning, reward, inner knowing is life-changing, is healing. That is healing.
Yeah, I love that. Oh man, Daphne, I feel like I could jam with you for hours here.
We get to pick up and drop off together every day next
Uh,
year.
I know, I know. Okay, so Daphne, in wrapping up, there's two questions I have left. One I always ask my guests, which is that if the DeLorean and time traveling is real, in that you can travel back in time and share a message to your younger self. My question to you is, how far back would you travel, and what message would you say to that younger Daphne?
Hmm. I'm going to say something very off-brand, but I think I would have told myself to try more drugs, like psychedelics. I mean, this is not like the profound thing that I would tell my younger self, but I'm just thinking now from where I sit today. And I think the real thing that I would say to myself is, you're safe, ease up, control less, allow more. Um,
Mm,
control less, allow more is what I would say to myself.
got it.
Of course, I'm saying this from a place of privilege right now, of having arrived in a healthy relationship, having healthy children, living a safe, privileged life. And I know looking back, like I had so much anxiety. So I know why I was that way. But I think I would look back and I would say, control less, allow more. And can I add one more?
Yeah, please.
I think I would also say, be assertive without being afraid.
Now, is that the teenage Daphne we're talking to? Is that the 20-year-old Daphne we're talking to?
Um, I mean, the control less and allow more, I really think starts really young for me, maybe 9 or 10. And being assertive without being afraid, I think is more in my 20s, my 30s. I feel so lucky to be alive right now where people are more and more comfortable being themselves.
Yeah.
Some lucky people are more and more comfortable being themselves. And I'm learning a lot from younger people and things that I feel like my generation was a little bit more shamey about. And yeah.
Beautiful. So last question, Daphne. Where can our listeners find you?
Okay. On Instagram at doing well or doingwell.com is my website.
Beautiful. And do you have any upcoming programs that you have? You mentioned, twice a year that you have the
Yeah.
cohort of folks, right?
Doing a group in October. I typically do one in the fall and one in the spring.
Hmm.
And but if you join the membership, I meet with my members monthly, and there's a huge living library on the membership filled with content. It's not linear necessarily. It's more kind of a circle, like the healing journey. But we're piloting more of a community aspect now, so there will be more kind of directional challenges and things like that to do together.
Yeah. Daphne, thank you so much for joining us today. I very much appreciate you allowing yourself to share your light in a raw and real way. And I really hope that our listeners can, I know they're going to be able to feel that. And I just appreciate who you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's always, always such a pleasure to talk to you. And this is so exciting for me to be here with you doing this. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Daphne.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Daphne. There are some good nuggets of wisdom that Daphne dropped today. And if there's a quote I can share that is inspired from what I learned in today's interview, it's this: A crust eaten in peace is better than a banquet partaken in anxiety. This quote was by Aesop. I hope today's interview that you are inspired to be more mindful in prioritizing self-care in your life. Feel free to share this episode with someone you feel can learn from Daphne's wisdom. If you haven't already, I invite you to hit that subscribe button to this Boom Vision podcast if you're ready to thrive together, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Until next time, folks, be kind to yourself, be in delight, be you. Thank you so much for tuning in to my Boom Vision podcast. If you'd like to find out more about me and this podcast, head over to benjaminyeh.com. That's spelled BenjaminYeh.com. If you haven't already, click subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.